Morning, everybody. Boker Tov. Shabbat Shalom. There are little name tags here with markers. If you don't mind filling them out, not only good for me, but good for folks who are here who might not know everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you all for obliging with the name tags. We appreciate it. If you haven't put one on yet, there's name tags right in the table that I'm pointing to right now with some markers. Thank you so much. All right, we're late. All right, friends. So good to see you. Great to be together. Good to study on Shabbat. It's a mitzvah. So, few things before we begin learning together. Thank you all for doing your name tags. We appreciate that. There's always somebody who might stop in who's new today or new last week or next week. So we appreciate it. Next time we're going to make sure to have the name tags and the markers available for you. Okay. So we want to give a hearty thank you to Lynn Grennert, who brought the bagels, And Carol Marshall for the bagel pickup. Thank you very much. Thank you for the sustenance. We appreciate it. Fantastic. I know, Dietz, you wanted to say that this is a commercial announcement.
There's a Yiddish concert tomorrow at King Park at 5 o'clock. It's free. It's an annual event and it's community-based.
Fantastic. Are you going to be playing any instruments? No. Okay. All right. Just thought you were, that would have been an extra sweetener. We also want to take this moment and to acknowledge the passing of Joan Levy, who was part of this group. I believe maybe last week Rabbi Klein had shared a Misha Berach with everybody, so I appreciate taking the time to remember Joan, Zichrona Livracha. Her funeral was on Thursday. It is traditional in Jewish custom. What we do is we often dedicate a learning to a loved one. That's a common thing actually that happens in the Jewish world. And so today's learning, let us dedicate that to Joan Levy as an opportunity to remember her. I think some of you might remember, and I taught a class on Wednesday mornings for a number of years. Few people here are present who used to come to those Wednesday mornings, and we still do them online on occasion. We're actually running one now with Uri Feinberg, but in the maybe 22 years that we did, that Wednesday class, folks, friends came and went. And we lost a number of them during that time. It's a blessing of studying with them, is learning from them, and it's also, and then you have that investment in them, and then when they pass, it's because the chemistry of the group changes. So I'm glad we can remember Joan today. Finally, we'll do the blessing over study, shall we? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, God, sovereign of the universe. In your holiness, you command us to engage in the words of Torah. Fantastic. All right, I am Josh Caruso. I'm the clergy team here at Congregation Mishkan Or. We're really privileged as a clergy team to participate in a rotation of our learnings on Shabbat morning, and it's something that we really do all look forward to, and it gives us a chance to take a deeper dive ourselves into the Torah portion and learn new things that we haven't learned in the past. That's always my wonderful challenge. I love just diving into verses that I haven't not dove into in the ways that I'd like to, and it gives me this wonderful excuse to do some extra study, which is always great. Okay, so before we start officially with my handout today, how many of you were difficult children? Raise your hand if you were a difficult kid. I mean, it's okay, All right, whatever that means, right? So it depends on the age. How many of you raised difficult children? Like, not that it was no reflection on your parenting necessarily, but they were difficult. Okay, so either in what way were you difficult, or in what way were your children difficult? What did that mean in your eyes? It's okay. I also had my challenges, love my children, but what would be ways in which they might have been difficult? Strong emotions. Rabbi Mobaum sometimes likes to say, big feelings in little bodies. Maida? So sometimes people who are smart, brilliant, also can be difficult. Maybe they do not suffer fools gladly. Okay. Other ways in which kids can be difficult. Rainer.
I think that there is, at least in my experience, there's an unwillingness to engage.
Hmm. Like a stubbornness.
Yeah, and also, I know what I'm doing. I don't need to
I don't.
explain.
I know. I'm a person of my own volition. I have independence. You don't know me. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Therefore you can't rule me. I'm not your mini me. I don't take orders. Nice. Any other? Go ahead, Viv.
Does it count if you learned a profound lesson from a difficult
If you learned a profound lesson
sibling?
from a difficult sibling, I think that counts.
It overrides everything.
Yes. So a lesson in difficulty and how. Okay. Got it. Yes, it does. Are you willing to go any further? Okay. I absolutely. There's it could be one kid is. I mean, we raised in the same home, but very different experiences. Hit a nerve, right? Yeah, right. Very different experiences in the home, and in fact, those siblings, experience their parents in different ways, and their parents might experience them in different ways. So it's very, and then thus kind of build some sibling rivalry. Yeah, Arthur. Inside a family, every child has a different set of parents. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so interesting. Yep, go ahead. Wow. Yes, yes. Okay, so more people, more kids, more tumult, more siblings. Maybe one sibling influences the other sibling, right? There's some are more mischievous than others, but why not join in? Absolutely. Yeah, okay. Uh,
There's also favoritism that plays play.
favoritism. The parents favoring a child, right? Or a perceived favoritism or a real favoritism, right? I mean, and we always get the thing where when there's a kid who's quiet, sometimes a parent will say, or a grandparent or an observer would say, "Oh, your child is so good." Wait a minute. It's not necessarily good or bad, right? Just a child may be more mild, doesn't mean they're better or but sometimes kids have a hot streak, right? There's a fire in their belly. Very, yeah, Sue.
Well, I was one of the quiet ones, so I was a
Sneaky rebel. All right. How did you demonstrate your sneakiness? Okay. Right. Today we have smartphones to record everything. But, I'm sure many are grateful that smartphones didn't exist back in a certain time when we were sneaky or rebellious. Yes, for sure. So, and some of that is natural pushing of boundaries, right? So what I wanted to talk about today, and by the way, welcome to our streamers. Hey, everybody, I'm sorry you can't participate with the give and take, but I'm looking forward to you joining us today. We have many loyal viewers and listeners and learners. What I want to talk about today is, even though we have a fantastic portion with a lot in there, I want to talk about one section, Deuteronomy 21, verses 18 to 21. 4 verses. I want to talk about 4 verses. All right, so if you were hoping for a more broad dive into our Parsha this week, I apologize, but I think this is worth investigating. Okay, the stubborn and rebellious son. Ha ha ha. All right. Sorry? Not the daughter. It doesn't mention the daughter. It's a Ben. Yeah, Ben Sorer Umore. So if you have your Bibles, that's great. Keep them with you. If you don't, I'm handing out, or actually, Carol and Nancy are distributing our source sheet for today, and it does have our text in it. But I always love when you have your Tanakh with you. So feel free to dive in, keep it with you. Books are great, and we like to put our hands on them and feel, oh, it's so good. It feels like, that tactile connection to text is really important. And you may just want to jump to other parts of the Torah while you're in it. I remember something from Exodus. Wait a minute, I'm going to go back. Okay, so feel free to do that as well. I wanted to do a treatment today on Ben Sorer or Umore. Okay, so this is the rebellious and stubborn son. Again, doesn't mention a woman, doesn't mention a girl, for many reasons that you probably can arrive to. There were certain expectations of boys that time that were set up as different expectations for girls. So I don't really do a big dive in it, but it does mention that the parents, both the father and the mother, are involved in this kind of discipline. So what I'm going to do now for a second is I'm going to actually read this section in Hebrew, and I'm going to break it down a little bit. For those of you who know Hebrew, it might help to hear some words that are familiar to you. For those who don't know Hebrew, just listen. You might hear some words that you're like just orally might connect for you, but it might be helpful just for this section. Okay, I'm going to do a little translation. It's that first page. Okay. Ki yeh li'ish ben sorer umore. If a man has a wayward and defiant son. Okay. Now you can also, we're going to look at translations of this. Could be stubborn. We'll look a little further. Like, what does this mean to be wayward and defiant? For those of you, by the way, who are fans of the West Wing, you might remember a moment when President Bartlett kind of dresses down a conservative, very conservative talk show host and starts quoting Bible verses. So, okay, anyway. Ki ish ben sorer umore. When you have a son who is wayward and rebellious, einenu shomea b'kol aviv uv'kol imo, and he doesn't listen to the voice of his father, or the voice of his mother. Vayisru oto velo yishma alehem. And, he does not obey them, does not listen to them. Yishma alehem, right? He doesn't hear them. Shomea can also mean obey. Okay? So doesn't hear them, doesn't obey them. Vetapshu vo aviv ve'imo. The father and mother, tapshu, grab. They're going to grab him. The mother and the father are going to grab him. V'hotziu oto, take him out of the house, el ziknei iro, to the elders of his city, ve'el sha'ar mikomo, to the gate of that place. So now it's a public event. Ve'amru el ziknei iro, and they say to the elders of his city, Benenu ze sorer umore, einenu shomea bekolenu, zolel v'sova. All right. This kid, our son, this guy right here, he's sorer umore. He's reckless, he's wayward, he's stubborn, he's rebellious. Einenu shomea, he doesn't listen to our voices. Now we're going to add on another piece. Zolel v'sova. He is a drunkard. He's a glutton and a drunkard. Woof. Urgamuhu kol anshe iro. Okay. The people of his town shall stone him va'avanim vamet, to death. Uva'arta hara mikirbecha. And we will wipe out this evil from our midst. V'chol Yisrael yishma'u. All Israel will hear and obey what they see. This is a cautionary tale. V'yira'u. And they will fear. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. What is going on? Some reactions to what's happened here. This is hard to read. It's very emotional. I got very caught up in this. Yes, Ivan.
I've read some commentators when they've looked at this, and they've said this is a very progressive part of Torah.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you look at the context in which it was written, and all the neighboring communities,
Sure.
the parents had the sole ability to do whatever they wanted with the child. And you think of Roman law where the father could just kill.
Oh, okay. So Ivan's saying this is a progressive thing. Could be perceived, because they take the issue outside of the home, is what you're saying, right?
They take the power to punish the child, kill the child from the parents, and give it to the elders.
Okay.
Parents lose that power.
Got it. Okay. So the parents release themselves from responsibility of punishing the child alone and bring him to the community. It's almost like, here's a second opinion. Let's get a second opinion. Maybe.
Or intervention.
Or intervention. We don't know what's happened. The Bible is sparse, right? The Torah is sparse, so we don't really know what happened in that exchange, but did bring them out to the community. Let's keep going. Jim.
But initially, you're thinking it's a young child, and then they throw in drunk and gluttonous.
Okay, still could be young. I'm not speaking from experience, but some people, yes.
The prescription defines a lot of cults.
Okay.
You don't do what we say, well,
Yeah.
you're either shunned
Yeah.
or we'll kill you.
Yeah. All right. He's no angel, this kid. Maybe he's no angel, right? Yeah. Steve.
The inclusion of glutton and drunkard. When I look back at the earlier verses, it seems like it's a cartoon in
Yeah.
the sense that they're trying to teach a lesson, but they don't really expect this to occur. Because the initial thing is he's just a rebel.
Yes, yes, yes.
But then the pronouncement that the parents have to make to the whole public
Yeah.
is much far beyond that. So I think it's more a lesson to the child of Jewish parents, like
Okay.
if you take it too far, this is the result.
Okay, so it might be like more hyperbole, like just a fair warning.
Yeah, it's more like a
Right.
parable.
I'm going to send you to military school. If you don't get your act, I mean, I know I'm not trying to make like some people have gone to military school, and it's not a bad thing. But I remember growing up, that was like a thing. My parents were like, going to, I'm like, military. Oh my God, military school. What about? It sounds terrible. Do Jews go into the military? Oh my gosh. Okay. It's like really scary, Arthur.
So a common question is, I looked up the word moren, it's spelled the same way. It's also the word for teacher.
Teacher, yes.
So I don't know,
Different.
are teachers rebellious?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the other.
Yeah, and we'll go over that, by the way, moreh, because I know some of you are like, morah, teacher. That's so nice. It's innocuous. It's a teacher. Different word, different meaning, but yeah, go ahead.
And then the question is, back to Ivan's comment, if you believe that over 1,000, 2,000 years humanity might advance morally, and then you have a text of a prior time that was less
Mm-hmm.
aware.
Yes.
We have the freedom to say this was a bad idea.
Yeah. We can kind of, in retrospect.
Maybe it's better than what the Romans did.
Yeah.
It's not really a lot better than what we do.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a model.
I mean, right now we would say instead of stoning to death, we talk about seeing a therapist.
We're seeing a therapist, right? They're probably, I don't know if there were like social workers or therapists back then, and, take you to Pinchas, and the other gate, and Pinchas, he is a therapist. He'll help you out. We'll talk about your drunkenness. It says, right. So like looking in the span of time, things have gotten better. But that was definitely a time where there weren't structures in place, right, to deal with this kid. So I want to be very careful here and think about, it's easy to look at this text and say, this is ridiculous. Tear the paper out of the Torah. We would never do this, right? But like, let's think about the context of the times. This is when we're good learners. We're good, right? We're good Torah scholars. We apply our knowledge of the Torah, and we don't judge it from 2026. We think about it from its time. Kelly.
I'm just interested in whether we know how often this actually happens. Like, could this be a case where many of these laws in this section are like, this happens, you stone that person to death?
Yes.
But is this a case instead where it's like the written law
Mm-hmm.
sounds so scary
Yes.
that its function is to make it sound scary enough that it doesn't actually happen? And so there's actually a
Mm-hmm.
difference between what's written and what's practiced. And I don't know if we actually know whether public stonings were very common in the era.
We're going to address it. It's excellent, Kelly. I mean, we touched on it a little bit already, and we're going to touch on it later. The rabbis have a lot to say about this, right? Because it's in the Torah, but it's sparse. These are 4 verses. They don't go into detail. We have lots of questions. We have lots of questions here. Like, right? What was the kid doing? I mean, besides being drunken and gluttonous, which is not like, right, capital punishment worthy. Like, what were the parents like? Come on, ask all the questions. Be like Rashi. What were the parents like? What was the community like? Was the community forgiving? Did they have a conversation? Did the community sit in caucus and listen to the story and then discuss whether or not they should stone him? We don't know. That's why the rabbis come in and they say, we have some thoughts about this. We have some ideas about this. We don't know the full story. The Torah is terse. All right, look at Rashi. Bottom of page 1. Sorer means, so what was this kid doing? Sorer means from the root to deviate. By the way, does this sound familiar? Sararnu. All right, sararnu means kind of stubbornness, okay? Deviate from the norm. This year when you're doing Sararnu, you'll remember this moment. We talked about Sararnu, okay, in our Vino Malkain, right, in our confessional. One who deviates from the proper path of life. Moreh means one who is disobedient to the words of his father, of the same meaning as Mamarim in the phrase, ye have been rebellious. And v'yisor oto, they shall chastise him, admonish him in the presence of 3 people, and if he still remains refractory, they cause him to be lashed through the court. So now the rabbis are kind of jumping in saying, here's a little bit of a deviation of the plan. Says the Torah, let him die and listen to this, let him die innocent of such crimes, and let him not die guilty of them. All right, we see this kid is a bad egg. We're doing society a favor by stoning and killing him and we're actually doing the kid a favor because he will be sinning. We're being proactive. We're good people. This is how wonderful are we? We are saving this kid from being sinful. Right? We are reading the tea leaves of this kid. By the way, I just did a little bit of a deeper dive, found a paper on this, a little bit more on Ben Sorer Umoreh that's not in your handout. Just read it to you. Few little things I highlighted. Sorer relates to obstinacy and stubbornness. In Isaiah, it says that somebody who walked in a way that is not good after their own thoughts. Someone who is making a plan that is not for me. Weaving a scheme that is not my spirit. Thereby, so that's God speaking, and thereby by piling sin upon sin. In Numbers 20:10, when Moses admonishes his people at Meribah, remember with the stick, and he says, "You rebels, mamrim." Listen, morim, he says, morim, moreh. You are rebels. You are bitter, like maror, bitterness. Moreh is more precisely defined as rebellion, which overlaps with the definition of sorer. It's a hendiades, fancy pantsy word, right? Anybody know what hendiades means? This is a real academic-y word. This is a Roger moment. He'd be so proud. Ben sorer or moreh, okay? This is somebody who you're using two nouns that basically illustrate the same idea. So one who is wayward and rebellious, it's the same thing. You see those words sometimes together over and over again. So two words that represent the same idea. The hendiades also appears in other places in Jeremiah, having a heart that is wayward, a lack of reliability in their faith, a repeated refusal to acknowledge authority. Just a little bit more. Ben sorer umoreh, with the drunkenness and the glutton, indicates a complete nonconformist, a threat to society. These expressions might be stock phrases to indicate an individual who is completely outside the bounds of socially acceptable behavior. Sometimes we have kids that we don't know what to do. Right? We just don't know what to do. They've been so they push the boundary so much that I don't have any recourse. So maybe I have to bring them somewhere else. maybe I have to figure out a new way to handle it. I don't know anymore. I don't know what to do anymore with them. I've tried everything, right? This is Bob. I mean, we're making a judgment here, right? What did they do that makes them so horrible and evil, right? So it could be a judgment call. But if they are behaving in a way that is socially unacceptable, that's a threat to other people, that might not be evil, but that's dangerous. So how do we manage somebody who's kind of gone beyond, right? Like beyond that pale. Lynn.
Is there a distinction between rebelling behavior-wise and rebelling intellectually?
Okay. So I'm thinking. Sorry?
I think there's probably a difference.
All right. You asked the question, you answered it. It's good. It's good. No, I love it. No, I love it. I love it. I think there is a difference. I was just thinking about the Passover Seder, right? The wicked child, right? Why is he wicked? Why is he wicked? He's wicked because he asks a question. What is this? Why are you doing these things? You know, it's not me, but why are you doing these things? So absolutely, like an intellectual resistance just is a sign of a fertile mind. But, right, when does that intellect threaten, when does it lead to behaviors? When does it threaten society? But, right, really smart people sometimes can overthrow, kind of the social order. I'm just kind of going to the next stage, right? Sometimes our kids are smarter than we are, and we're threatened by that. Right? We don't know how to answer them. We don't know how to handle it. Jim? Mm-hmm. Yes. In Boston?
If we go back in time,
Right, right. Have you heard this one? This is a woman in Boston. Children were young, and then she ended up killing herself. Right? Is it? She tried to. Right? She jumped out of the window or something. Yeah. Okay. Another reason to bring this child out into the community. Right? There's another kind of sounding board. Steve.
I kind of want to put this rebelliousness in a box, like what the nature of this rebelliousness is. And the thing that strikes me is he's not rebellious against the faith of his parents. Otherwise, they'd call it idolatry.
Mm-hmm.
That clearly has capital implications. So by what not is said, by what is not included, which the authors could obviously say he worshipped idols or he didn't believe in one God or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that form of rebelliousness.
Right.
So there are some things in which he's conforming.
It's true. Very good. Very good. Arthur.
So two things. One is one of my favorite rabbinic commentaries is, I don't know if I have this right, there's a commandment, I'm not entirely clear on my memory of it, about not separating a mother bird from its young.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it set up this story where a son is up in a tree and the father commands the son to remove the mother bird from the nest and chop the tree down, which is forbidden.
Yeah.
And he said, in order to observe the law, he says, no.
Right. So he's
According to rabbis, he is now violating honor your father and mother.
right.
And enters into this realm of rebellious son. And they say, according to the law, the parents have the right to
Ye-
kill him.
yeah.
Punish him. Now, like bring him to the community that's trying to kill him. And the other comment is I think there's a real lot to be said about the end of this passage, which reminds me of Tom Friedman. He said the worst thing you could think about in the Middle East is the phrase once and for all. That one side on a battle will think that they can end
Mm-hmm.
once and
Yeah.
for all, because that leads to extreme measures.
Mm-hmm.
So this says, so that you can remove evil from your community.
Yeah.
That I get frightened when I think a community is going to actually
Yeah.
do whatever
The subjectivity of it all.
all evil.
Mm-hmm.
If your community is
Yeah.
all evil, you're going to be doing some very bad things.
Yeah. Let's look at top of page 2. I mean, it's been mentioned already, right? Exodus 20:12, Leviticus 19:3. There's one in Deuteronomy 2. Honor your father and mother, that you may long endure on the land. Leviticus, you shall each revere your mother, so and keep my Sabbaths, your mother and father. All right. So honor, revere, kabed avahem, or yirah. This like kind of fear your parents. The idea being your parents are like a proxy for God in that way, right? They're kind of seen in the same way. God is kind of the ultimate parent. So we're dealing with a rebuke towards the kid of going against their parents' will. Of course, this opens up a whole box, Pandora's box of issues around. It's already been raised. Are the parents' expectations correct? Are they true? Are they prudent? This is very dangerous, right? Again, why we're bringing this kid out maybe into the community. So, Ivan, you write on about this, right? This whole idea of this progressiveness, of this bringing this kid out into the community. We don't know what the parents are like. So take a look at Sanhedrin on the bottom of 2. The Gemara says, it is taught in a Breita. Breita is a piece of text that didn't make the cut into the Talmud, but sometimes the rabbis pick it up. It's like lost on the cutting room floor. These are conversations that remained on the cutting room floor, but these are rabbis who know of these texts and bring them in to support their argument. It is taught in Baraita that further elaborates upon the words of the Mishnah. Rabbi Yossi Galili says it is simply due to the fact that the boy ate a tartimar, My note is half a pound. It's about a half a pound of meat. This is the glutton and drunkard part. And drank a half log of Italian wine. This is from the Talmud. All right. No, a quarter pint. Not terrible, right? I know. Come on. Sorry? It's one Whopper? Yeah, okay. Okay. I love it. Got to bring Burger King into the conversation at some point. One Whopper and a quarter pint of Guinness. I mean, come on. All right. The Torah states that he shall be taken out to court to be stoned? Really? Rather, the Torah penetrated the ultimate mindset of the stubborn and rebellious son and the inevitable results of his actions, and it is understood that he will continue on this path. And in the end, he will squander his father's property, seeking the pleasures to which he had been accustomed to, but not finding them. He will go out to the crossroads and rob people. Rabbis had a good imagination. All right, there again, they are like it's a special sneak preview into this kid's life. Okay, so got to be careful, Dietz.
What if Abraham hadn't been a rebellious son and rebelling against Torah's instruction to idol worship?
Oh, very good, Dietz. Going back to some of the OG Torah, right? And we've got one of our heroes, Abraham, who, his father was an idol maker, mostly in Midrash. You can find a little bit in the book of Joshua on this story. It really happened. And his father's an idol maker, and what does he do? His father Terach, and he says, I'm not going to be like that. And, kind of follows the way of God. So he turns away, he resists his father's ways. So true. Okay, again, we'll go back again. Another reason to bring him out into the community, right? Archie.
So, let's go to the last sentence. He'll go to the crossroads and rob people.
Yeah.
But if you go back to the beginning,
Yeah.
there's two people that have to calm this potential thief down. The mother and the father.
Mm-hmm.
The mother's not cooperative. The punishment.
Mm-hmm.
That son is going to do exactly what happens in the last line.
Mm-hmm.
He will squander his father's property. Seeking the, he becomes spoiled. He becomes addicted
Mm-hmm.
to the spending, to the frivolity.
Yep.
And then one day it finally is
Yeah.
empty.
Yeah.
And he goes out and he starts to steal.
Yeah.
You've seen it happen.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's we learn from those who are around.
It's a cooperation thing.
Uh-huh. And where is the mother? Yeah, right. It's just the father's property. Does the mother have a say? Do the parents agree? Or do they have, right? We don't know what the conversations the parents had. Like, we got to bring him out into the community. No, that's horrible. Come on. It's a kid. He's a kid. No. He's really bad. It's like, what happened in that conversation?
I was going to go, how do you determine that the child is responsible for their own actions and therefore punishable? Culpability.
Yeah. Right. When is it the parents' responsibility?
Well,
And
when does the child, at what age or whatever marker of maturity,
Sure.
does this punishment apply, or are they innocent because they're young and inexperienced?
Right. They don't know. All the research I did, they didn't talk about an age. I didn't hear it, but we get.
The rabbis, they talk about
Yeah.
all sorts of
Yeah.
things about how old.
Of course. We could talk about bar mitzvah age and like when are you really responsible, right? So the kid is drinking this much, and if they're eating this kind of meat, they have to have the facility to eat the meat, and so we're thinking teen. I'm thinking teenager. I don't know. Yeah.
I was about to say that
Right.
And that's why it says, then you will be guilty of the sin
Yes.
and not innocent as he is right now.
I gotcha. Yeah. Look at Jonathan Stacks on Papa page 3. On this view, the law of the stubborn and rebellious son is a form of preemptive punishment. He is deemed worthy of punishment not for what he has done, but what he is likely to do in the future. The equivalent nowadays would be preventative detention. That is to say, putting someone in prison because he or she is judged to be a danger to society. There is a concept in secular law of punishment as deterrence, not just punishment as retribution. That, according to Rabbi Yossi, not Jose, is the logic of this law. Not only is the child himself sentenced, but the aim is also that all Israel will hear of it and be afraid. In other words, that other potential criminals be discouraged by seeing the fate of this one. So we have another element to this, which is we're punishing the kid, we're saving him from future sin, and we are setting a standard. Everybody's going to see that this kid was stoned publicly, and therefore this is a cautionary tale. You cannot do the same thing, or you will suffer the same fate.
So I see a serious error in this paragraph because, at least in our law, the deterrence happens once you're found guilty by court of law for doing something, not for intending to do something. You can't be sentenced for it.
Sure.
It's just conspiracy, but generally speaking,
Yeah.
to commit a crime, you be charged with a crime. And so
In American law.
in American law,
Yeah.
you have deterrence in the severity of the punishment.
Yeah.
You can't use the principle of deterrence thing to haul everyone in.
Right.
Who might pose a threat one day.
Uh-huh.
Because we all are potential.
Right.
Potentially, everyone's a potential.
And what's the bias that we have in sentencing this kid? You know, look, it's no secret, right? In juvenile detention, the majority are black boys. Sorry? Almost, right, I think like some ridiculous 80 to 90%. So, right, is it like, well, this kid is going to, look what they do. Look what the predecessors have done. So we got to put him away, right? So there's all the biases that come with this, or maybe this kid looks like a troublemaker. You know, so how do we, like, we are not completely objective at all in making declarations about who these children should be. Jackie.
Yeah, I want to go back to the parents, they were complaining about the child.
Yes.
But the child could be vindicated and have grown up with these gluttonous people who are also drunkards.
The example of his parents is not a great one, so he's following what he knows.
So the parents want to see him as the bad one,
Mm-hmm.
possibly not put it on themselves and bring it up to the cover.
Right.
So, but you just said something about the majority of kids going to jail are black children, and you have to look at the environment, which is what he just said, about where the children are coming from.
Are they given a true opportunity to have a life that they could experience?
The community
Yeah.
sees where he came from and therefore might want to do away with him and feel that stoning is okay.
Right.
That takes it off the responsibility.
This is what they know, is what you're saying. It's like what they've, whether it's from a parent point of view or from your community point of view, it's what you know, and what you know is the only thing you know until you're taught different or see differently. It's hard to imagine a life that you don't live in.
So, in my experience, lots of teenage boys eat and eat and eat.
A lot of teenage boys have hollow legs. It just goes somewhere, right? Yeah. Yeah. So that's not you're saying that's not a good indication. I know. I had it. My older kid was a string bean and just ate forever. Yeah.
Feels like there's fear and then control. So in the home, they fear that this kid is found in
Mm-hmm.
We have to keep it under
Yeah.
control, so we'll make it really extreme punishment, and use this kid as an example to try to control him.
Yeah, right. Right. It's societal order, and maybe that's a softer way of saying control and fear, but it's the same kind of idea, right? Creating order, law and order are words that kind of are used in today's parlance, right? They can mean a lot of different things, right? What does law and order mean?
What, does this clash with the idea that the eldest inherits everything? And we've got rid of the eldest?
Sure. Are you like conspiratorially? You mean the parents are? We don't want him to inherit. Yeah, could be. That one I haven't thought of. Yeah, who knows? There's could be so many motivations. Kelly.
I was just thinking, okay, if you take away stoning for a second, I know that's suspending reality for a moment, but if you take away the stoning aspect, the other part of the encouragement in this section is essentially that parents should not struggle with children that they're having difficulty with alone. And so I think that there is some, like, something good about that, of just like, don't just struggle with your kid alone.
Right.
If there may be societal problems that come from like unresolved difficulties in childhood, you should take that into the community.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I know that then it ends with, but then you should.
It's all we're with you. We're with you. Yeah. I'm gonna bring up some arguments that sort of buttress what you're saying. Absolutely. Like, there is something to be said about communal responsibility. What is our role in the community to hold people to account, but also to see another view on things? Look at middle of 3, by the way. The rabbis start to struggle with this idea that this could actually be part of our tradition. So they find ways of kind of mollifying or kind of mitigating against this terrible, terrible sort of punishment. If a householder has a wayward and defiant son, it's from the Women's Torah Study, the rabbis restrict the law of the rebellious son, effectively legislating it out of existence. One restriction involves requiring the consent of both parents to the punishment. Remember, we were saying, what if mom doesn't agree with dad? The son cannot be subject to the procedure unless he has both a father and a mother, and the parents' marriage must be a suitable one, whatever that means. If either parent has any one of a number of physical defects, the law does not apply. All right, look at these rabbis. They're so smart. Okay, the rabbis are kind of jumping in. They're starting all of these little pieces and parts. Are adding texture to the conversation, the argument. This is really what's great about the oral law. The rabbis are chiming in. There's more. Bottom of 3. The Mishnah teaches that the boy does not become a stubborn and rebellious son unless he actually eats meat and drinks wine. The sages taught if he ate any other food but did not eat meat, or if he drank any other beverage but did not drink wine, he does not become a stubborn and rebellious son unless he actually eats meat and drinks wine. The son of ours is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey our voices. He is a glutton and a drunkard. All right, rabbis are trying to figure this out. They're coming up with all of these loopholes. So is this law really applicable? Mishnah Torah, top of page 4. There's more. If the father desires to convict him and his mother does not desire, or his mother desires and his father does not desire, he is not judged as a wayward and rebellious son. His father and mother shall take hold of him. All right, so, if one of the parents has had his arm amputated, was lame, dumb, blind, or deaf, the son is not judged as a wayward and rebellious son. These concepts are derived as follows. His father and mother shall take hold of him. This excludes parents with amputated arms. This is really important. And bring him out. This excludes the lame, right? You can't bring him out if you don't have arms to bring him out. They say this excludes the dumb, the son of ours. This excludes the blind. He does not heed our voice. This excludes the dumb. Again, not meaning dumb in the pejorative way, but in the way of like hearing, right? And seeing and all of those pieces. So, okay. So, one more. One more. If he stole from his father and ate at his father's property, or from others and ate at others' property, or from others and ate at his father's property, he is not treated as deviant and a rebellious son unless he stole from his father and ate at others' property. Rabbi Yehuda says, unless he stole both from his father and his mother. What are all these texts trying to say? What's the message here? Yes, okay, and it's just not. We don't want to do this. We don't like this, and I mean, we can't say this is bunk because God wrote the freaking Torah. I mean, this is really important, right? But we can say this is not something that was actually supposed to be, executed. Bad pun, but wasn't supposed to be, executed in a day at all. Candy. Why were the rabbis? Go ahead.
Who put the Torah together?
Yeah.
Why did they include this section?
Well,
It's short, it's succinct, you said, it's only a paragraph, it could be gone and we would never know it. Nobody would ever know it.
disclaimer.
No compassion.
Right. So disclaimer. We don't know who wrote the Torah.
The rabbis compiled it, though. They could have left it out.
There were, there's, of course, a traditionalist view that God wrote the Torah. There's another, go down a level, Moses wrote the Torah. All right, then you go down a level, maybe more humanist, right? That they were inspired individuals like J.E.P. and D. These were like inspired authors, right? So we don't know. But Candy asks a really important question, like, why include this at all? Why do we have this in our beautiful Torah? We have so much good stuff in here. It's like, why is this included in the book of Deuteronomy? Why did we need to share this? Couldn't it have fallen by the wayside, cutting room floor? We don't need this. I don't know if somebody had their hand up. Go ahead, Ivan.
I think the answer is what we came back to originally, that the neighboring communities were letting the parents kill their sons. And one of the things in this passage is that parents, you cannot do it.
Bless you.
So that message still remains. Now, with all these exceptions by the rabbis, the community won't do it.
Yep.
But the first message that parents can't do it still remains.
Thank you, Ivan. Right. So maybe this is a reaction. Maybe, Ivan, we can also talk about the dietary laws. There's an argument that the dietary laws were included in the Torah, right? No pork, no shellfish, because other societies were doing it. It was a way of differentiating who we are, whether ethically, morally. So this was a way of saying the other communities, they might kill their child who's a wayward, rebellious. We have a plan. We have a plan to do something, at least to take a next step and bring them in the community. Jim. Yeah.
But there's nothing from the other side of the coin. That is to say, they're so worried about the child affecting the community. But what about the situation where the kid is bad, but the mother and father say, oh, he's fine?
Right.
But they don't have that unity. There's no mention here of what the community's responsibility is.
Yeah, if there has to be an intervention. It's excellent, Jim. It's a really...
It throws all the responsibility on the parents, whether they're good or bad.
Yeah, right. Who knows? Right, because to bring them out to the community, you need parents to kind of pull that lever, right? But if the parents are not in a position to pull, they can't see it. We know that too, that they're parents who are unable to see their child in the way that they really are and the harm that they could cause to society. I had a really good friend, couple friend. My wife and I had a couple friends in Germany, still close with them, but they parented very differently. We brought our tiny kids, I think they were maybe a year and a half, 2 years old. We went to Denmark, stayed in a thatched roof home. It was really great. And then we went to the beach, and their kid was like beating on our child, you know, and it was like, these were good friends of ours. Do you ever do this with your other parents? Any parent a different way? And like, we had to stage an intervention because like the kid ended up becoming a law enforcement officer. So, you know, I'm not making, I didn't mean it that way. I just meant that like he went into the military. But the kid needed to channel maybe some of those instincts in a good way. I was not trying to denigrate law enforcement. I promise you. That was not my point. My point is that the kid needed channeling of that kind of the energy, that wanting, you know, and so we had to say, we were protecting our child from this kid who's taking a stick and like whacking it at, you know, my kid is like, ah. So, yeah, anyway, Cynthia.
I certainly understand the idea of intervention and improvement. What I have difficulty with is it's in the public marketplace. When we talk about intervention, we talk about sane people or concerned people helping the parent with the child. But we don't talk about it in a public space where there's public shaming.
Yes.
Any of the rabbis talk about the
Mm-hmm.
publicness.
Yeah. That's such a good point, Cynthia. You know, I didn't read anything about that in my research, but you know, there are laws and rules about public shaming and how it's like murdering. When you shame somebody publicly, it's like you're murdering them. We're going to get to this kind of idea of how do we soften this approach. This seems like a very harsh way of treating. So I mean, we know in America about public lynchings, right? We know what that is and how horrible that is. But, you know, so it gets back to Candy's question, right? Why? Why is this appearing in the Torah at all? You know, by the way, we read a lot of reasons why the rabbis suggest that this really could never happen. Eye for an eye. I'm sure you studied, those of you who are kind of loyal you know, this is like one of those greatest hits of how the rabbis treat Torah issues, right? An eye for an eye is not an actual eye for an eye, but maybe the monetary equivalent of somebody lost an eye, that if I'm the one who's caused you to lose the eye, then I have to pay you as opposed to letting you gouge out my own eye. So these are kind of, could be hyperbolic, you know, arguments. Arthur.
So, to Cindy's point, there is an example in modern life of a community intervening, but it's held in the strictest confidence.
Mm-hmm.
So we are obligated, if you're in a helping profession, to report suspicion
Sure.
of abuse.
Right.
There's a major intervention, but it's very confidential.
Mm-hmm.
Like very,
Yep.
there's a lot of work put into the system to make sure it doesn't go public.
There was no societal order back then that included these kinds of resources. That was the problem. Doesn't mean it's apologetic, Cynthia. You're totally right. But it shows that there was kind of a stark understanding of how we deal with this without having other recourse, right? There was no JFSA back then, right? There were no social services in the way. I had included a couple. Rabbi Avital Hochstein kind of included 3 different approaches and why we need the social order, and so this was kind of just an interesting little approach. I'm going to breeze through it a little bit because I want to make sure we get through everything. And she actually brings up 3 contemporary scholars and theorists who raise the importance of having court, some kind of court. She views, here's Kate Millett, she views the family as a key arm of the patriarchal system, a patriarchal unit within a patriarchal whole, and argues that it is through the family that the social structure is maintained and kept stable. When a specific patriarchal unit, such as a family, is undermined, for instance by a child who refuses to obey his parents, there arises a need to turn to a higher patriarchal authority, the elders of the city, to preserve order. According to this perspective, bringing the child before the court serves to clarify the power structure, display it, restore authority to those in power. Millett views the intervention of public law and its institutions, such as the Council of Elders, in family matters as a mechanism for anchoring and reinforcing the existing social order. There's a couple of more viewpoints for the court as a means to protect the vulnerable, right? When the parents are not connected and doing the right thing. And also Carol Gilligan, you might have heard of. She's actually very much involved in facing history and ourselves. She talks about the framework focuses on care, attentiveness, trust, and responsiveness to the needs, rather than equality, fairness, and individual rights. An ethics of care emphasizes that the caregiver and the recipient of care exist within interconnected, non-competitive relationships. In this reading, the court becomes a space for deep work on the relationships of those who come before it. In this case, a son and his parents, when within the home and family there is a failure to listen and complaints of rebelliousness and defiance, there arises a need to turn to an extra familial public entity, such as the elders of society, in order to neutrally understand what is taking place. Okay, so I think we all agree that we need these systems in place. Malcolm, you had your hand up before. Yep, go ahead, it's okay. Yes.
Handed down at that time, but nevertheless, they were no longer respecting their elder. So to me, obviously I'm making a lot of leaps here, but take away the harshness of this. It's doing two things. It's saying there are norms to which we expect either in a familial setting or a societal setting. And when those norms are broken and can't be repaired, there is a method, there is a stepwise process for how to address it. First in the family, and if not able to be addressed in the family, and then in some form in the larger community. And that's how order is.
Beautiful. And bringing up Noah's behavior and his, like, right? So it's almost like his kids who had their own challenges, right? I mean, but they're seeing a model of behavior that they shouldn't be emulating. So sometimes we have to divorce ourselves from our parents, so to speak. And we see, right, I mean, we may have seen behaviors in our parents that we recognize we're deviant or just not the way we would do. I always tell couples this when counseling towards marriage. I'm saying your parents had a different marriage. You may want to emulate a lot of the points, but you're going to establish your own system and your own kind of way of living together. Doesn't mean it's any disrespect to your parents. It just means that you might want to do things differently. So again, it doesn't have to be deviancies, but it just can be, everything that the parents do is not necessarily golden, right? We don't have to emulate everything. And as we get older, we learn that our parents are flawed. It's just, that's a normal part of life. Yeah.
Basically, we do the same thing now. Our kids do a lot worse now with shooting and everything else. But basically, the law takes over. Substitute the panhandlers, and you have the same thing. We turn it over to a higher power, so to speak.
We have systems in place, for better and for worse. Systems don't always work in the ways they should. That's the, right, so the arguments of these three kind of theorists that we just read is promoting the importance of the social systems and the social order. We also know that the social order is not perfect, and that we live in a society where, kind of law enforcement doesn't always work to everybody's advantage. So, you know what I mean? I know you all know this. We can't be naive that just turning kids over to law enforcement, not to, again, be dismissive of our legal system or our law enforcement system, but it's not perfect and it doesn't always treat everybody equally. That's the challenge, right, of turning our kids over, is like also knowing, well, who are we turning them over to? How can we be judicious about doing that? Yeah. Sure. Your worth is far beyond rubies. Yes. Correct. Extends her hand to the poor. So fascinating. Yeah, the Eshet Chayil, as I've always understood it, is relegated to her role in the home, to her husband and to her children, from a very traditionalist point of view, right? A heteronormative, point of view. But it's a great point about there are pieces in there in the Eshet Chayil that also talk about you extend your hand to the community. I have to look at it. It's not just in the home. It does see her as someone who kind of holds a standard for the community. I have to look at the actual wording, but traditionally it's kind of rooted in the home. Correct. Mm-hmm. Everyone's supposed to, absolutely. And we know we don't have, because a lot of the women's world fell on the cutting room floor, we don't have as much evidence, at least in Jewish history, as we would like, about the role that women served in the community, how they truly held the community together. I mean, that's the piece. So I would say, yes, the men have the responsibility, but it often did fall on the women, and that's the piece we don't read about, because the rabbis were steeped in seeing the male as kind of upholding their laws. Look at Rabbi Ethan Tucker on page 6. At the end of the day, I would argue the mitzvah of the wayward and rebellious son is highly intelligible and meaningful. If we only have the curiosity and the courage to step out of our context and truly take seriously the world in which this mitzvah was originally commanded, the world of the Iron Age. This is my note, Josh Caruso, 1200 to 500 BCE. That's the Iron Age. In the world of the Iron Age was one in which there was no meaningful police force, little centralized power, no means of imprisonment, and virtually nothing comparable to either the penitentiary or punitive aspects of our criminal justice system. It was a given that threats to society would be executed. The only question was by whom, for what, and based on what evidence. Local elders were hugely important for keeping order, but even more so were parents. To disobey parents in the world of the Torah is fundamentally analogous to killing a law enforcement agent today. Interesting approach, right? The wayward and rebellious son, by dint of his disobedience alone, would already have threatened the social order dramatically, in contrast to our own time when this sort of disobedience is largely seen as a sign of family dysfunction, lacking any real broader social ramifications. In a world in which police keep order, the state has a near monopoly on violence, there is a system of mass incarceration, it seems shocking to mete out any real punishment for filial disobedience. So, interesting, right? It's if we think about it that way, there was no kind of law and order in that world except as established and implemented by the parents themselves. Bottom of page 6. This is Hagar and Ishmael. Sarah saw the son whom Hagar the Egyptian had borne to Abraham playing. She said to Abraham, "Cast out that slave woman and her son, for the son of that slave shall not share in the inheritance with my son Isaac." Are you familiar with the story? All right, remember? And why was this? Sarah cast her out because she was a threat. Hagar and Ishmael were a threat to raising Isaac in her home. Abraham took some bread and a skin of water and gave them to Hagar. He placed them over her shoulder. She went out. When the water was gone, she left the child under the bushes and went and sat at a distance, a bow shot away, for she thought, let me not look at this as this child dies. And sitting thus afar, she burst into tears. Page 7. God heard the cry of the boy, and an angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said, what troubles you, Hagar? Fear not, for God has heeded the cry of this boy. Okay, come lift up the boy, hold him. God opened her eyes, saw the well of water. She went and filled the skin. Okay, so why do I bring this up? Let's get back to basics. This kid is the wayward child. You know, he's playing, we say he's like playing, that's all it says in the text, is he was playing with Isaac. And at Ishmael, he was mitzachek. He was playing with the child. But what did he do? What did he do? I think we roundly understand that it wasn't the kid. It was Hagar who was a threat to Sarah. She had to get rid of him. Now, the rabbis paint a picture later that Ishmael kind of became the progenitor of, Islam, and, and they kind of put a whole sort of, they paint a whole picture for Ishmael that doesn't really come from the Torah, or at least from that moment. How bad could he have been? But he is the ben sorer umoreh. He is the wayward and rebellious child. What does God do? God saves him. There's no court of public opinion. He's just saved. If you look at the book of Psalms, Psalm 27, which is traditionally read during Elul, and Rabbi Mulbaum did a whole session on Psalm 27. If you see the bold point, O Eternal One, I seek your face. Do not hide your face from me. Do not thrust aside your servant in anger. You have ever been my help. Do not forsake me. Do not abandon me, O God, my deliverer. Though my father and mother abandon me, God will take me in. So, again, no social order, no social construct. And yet, we have something here that says that even if my parents abandon me, they leave me, that I have a home. And my home is with God. That God sees the humanity in every human being, in every child. That's the piece that's missing from the Torah. That it feels like now it feels quite glaringly missing. Where was God in that moment when that child is being brought to be stoned? Why, Candy, does this end up in the Torah at all? Why didn't God rescue this kid? We're coming from a place in Genesis where the law does not exist yet, right? There's no structure at all. And now we're moving to a place where the law has been delivered. There are certain ways that children should live, be great, right? Before honor your mother and father was ever established, because we're still in the book of Genesis with Hagar and Ishmael. And now, once law is established, it's almost as if the law is bimkom God's, in place of, right? Almost like supersedes God's intervention. Yeah.
In regards to Hagar and that situation, if you can go to line 15 of Deuteronomy 21,
Mm-hmm.
it's very specific. It's irrelevant who the mother is. The firstborn
Mm-hmm.
is the birthright.
Mm-hmm.
It says it right there.
Mm-hmm.
So, in that case, Ishmael should have been
The chosen, or like, yeah. Mm-hmm. We see this.
It also flies in the face of this whole
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden Sarah's running the house.
Yeah. Right. But this is
The reality of most houses.
and well, I no comment on that one, but I'll just say that yeah, the patriarchal system is being more reinforced after the law has been delivered, but also we do know that it says that a mother and a father are participating in bringing their kid. But yeah, it is interesting what the balance is there, Steve.
Sort of picking up on Ivan's point, we have examples today of honor killings where the family takes the matters into their own hands. And so I very much appreciate
Yeah.
Ivan's point of this is progressive.
Yeah.
The family cannot be the judge and executioner.
Yeah. Yeah, we have this with the cities of refuge too, right? Like you can, if someone in your family has been killed by another, you have the right to practice vengeance unless they get to a city of refuge where it's untouchable. So it is interesting where they kind of create these release valves for these very stern laws. But absolutely, I mean, right, you read those 4 verses and at first you think, this is terrible. And then you see that maybe that there is there's a little kind of shred of legitimacy to this, the idea that a community weighs in. I really would like to know what went on. If this really happened, did the community members really have a conversation about this? Was there a Beit Din? Was there an opportunity to process this together? But getting back to the point of this child is a child of God. No matter how difficult this kid is, how do we put them in a position to succeed in the world? I don't want to sound Pollyannish. There are kids who some of them are really troubled and they need a tremendous amount of intervention and help. But we also know that there are a lot of kids, teens, older teens, their frontal lobe has not been developed yet, frontal lobe cortex. So it's like we may have to have some forbearance and reserved judgment until this person truly proves that they're the bad egg or at least needs to be incarcerated for longer than they should. So page 8. Jonathan Sacks. Though there is no overt reference here to the law of the stubborn and rebellious son, the echoes are unmistakable. That is precisely what the law envisages, namely parents coming to court and saying, we can no longer control our child. We reject him. It is also what Sarah and reluctantly Abraham did to Ishmael. The psalm, therefore, expresses, the Psalm 27, which I just read, expresses a tragic human possibility. There are cases in which the relationship between parents and a child can break down completely, when a child can feel completely rejected. Yet, says the psalm, divine justice is something more than mere justice. God never rejects us, precisely because the gates of repentance are never closed. God holds out his hand to all of us, and that relationship cannot break down. We may, God forbid, reject God, but God never rejects us. We may be his stubborn and rebellious children, but he is our ever accessible parent. Pardon the gendered God. I don't believe God is limited to a he or a she. But we get the intent from Rabbi Sacks. Thus in the psalm, the narrow legal theme of the juvenile delinquent becomes a majestic truth about the human condition. God never abandons us or gives up on us, because God never ceases to believe that whatever wrong we may have done in the past, we can mend and transcend in the future. More than we have faith in God, God has faith in us. In that knowledge, we find a strength greater than ourselves, lifting us when we fall, affirming us in the midst of rejection, believing in us more than we even believe in ourselves. So this feels particularly relevant for the High Holy Days, for this moment when we hope that there is a window, there's a little sliver of light open for for our relationship with God, but also our relationship with our children, our siblings, our spouses, relationships with those who we're estranged from. That there's this, maybe there's a little sliver of hope. And that's what I love about the High Holy Days. It's the gates are never really closed, you know, and I know there's a lot of drama around Ne'ilah, right? This is the gates are closing, the gates are closing. But Judaism really teaches that the gates are never truly closed for tshuva, for repentance. There's always an opportunity. We don't know what's coming around the corner. So when people come to me and talk to me about estrangement, I tell them, leave the window, leave the door open. You never know. Doesn't mean you have to go on with your lives, but leave the window open. And then there's the other side of it. Rabbi, I don't want to leave the window open. I'm done. And that's okay too. That's okay too, you know. But for those of us who hold out hope that the relationships can be restored and repaired, that's the work of Elul and the work of the High Holy Days. Malcolm.
So I'm struck that so some societies, this society in particular, permits us to kill, put people to death.
Mm-hmm.
And though this, what you just described, says that irrespective of the people of a sin,
Yeah.
that individual still has a path back
Yes.
to God.
Yes.
So, in that sense, perhaps, so often in situations where a person is being put to death or visited by clergy, and whether that's a acknowledgement or
Yeah.
a realization that we're organized by a set of human laws,
Sure.
but there are relationships that we're effectively acknowledging that transcend
Mm-hmm.
our human laws, and that individual is still, even in the face of death, societally enforced death, that individual still has a relationship which,
Yes.
and
God is still open. I know for some they may think this is a Christian view, right? If you saw a dead man walking, you know, or read the book, you know, Sister Helen Prejean, you know, and you know, even for the worst of our sins, right, in the Catholic rites, you can be absolved, you know, you can accept the sacraments and you can go to God kind of clean. I don't know if it's our job to weigh in on whether an individual is, you know, is confined to, you know, evil, you know, kind of an evil designation for the rest of their lives. But our job is to be human, right? And to see the humanity in them. I was just talking with Pastor Richard Gibson of Elizabeth Baptist Church just this past Wednesday. And he was talking that he and his church have a practice every Saturday or every other Saturday to go visit those who are in juvenile detention, mostly black men. And they, we're going to be doing this soon. We're going to be collecting some clothing for teens ages like as long as 11 to 18 for them to go to court, not in their orange jumpsuits. And he visits them with his community. And he said, you know, I kind of asked him, what do you say? And he says, we just want them to know that they're still loved. They're still loved, and, you know, in a place where they have to be, you know, hard, and they're experiencing so much anger, because that's how you survive in prison, is anger, is through anger and being tough, that, you know, there are people who see the other parts of you. So, yeah, Malcolm, it's like a really good point that I think we do have a role pastorally. We don't even have to be clergy to find the humanity individuals. You know, I had an individual who was part of Fairmount Temple at one point, got in trouble with the law, and they reached out to me, and they're a human being. It doesn't absolve them from what they did, but everybody needs not only an advocate, like a legal advocate, but people need an advocate just to say, I love you, you know, it's okay. It doesn't excuse what you did, but you're still important in my eyes. You're still a person. We see a window open for you to change. And maybe it's the most horrid crime, and they're going to spend the rest of their time in jail, maybe in prison, and yet even within in those confines, they can find some kind of redemption. Sorry? Some dignity, right? Everybody deserves it. We don't know what their circumstances are. And yeah, so any event. Thanks, everybody. Happy to hang around for a couple more minutes for conversation or questions, but have a good rest of your Shabbat. Thanks, everybody. Yep.
I have a favor. My name is Ellen Markel. And I was